I write in the book about having a limiting belief, when somebody says, well, you should write a book. It's like, I can't write a book, I'm dyslexic. You know, when your teachers or your school report said you wouldn't amount to much, that would sting. I don't think it held me back. So I would say to anybody else with that disability, which is labelled as a disability, is it's actually a unique, fantastic strength and ability, because you see things in very different ways.
Well, Lottie, thank you very much for joining me on Success Matters today. We've known each other for quite some time through work. I'm not even sure actually how long exactly it is. You've pivoted your job really from what you were doing a few years ago when we first met to now being a coach and an author and various other things. So I suppose let's start with how that pivot happened. And in your book, Career Unstuck, which I have a copy of here, you talk about finding yourself. You were not necessarily feeling fulfilled in the role that you had. You then had a experience with not such a great manager. So perhaps we could explore a bit around that, please.
Yeah, of course. I can't remember if we were in the same team, but I remember discovering my strengths. I certainly remember Martin being in the team. I remember discovering my strengths. I'm pretty sure it was 2009. So Brian Belly, who we both know, Verizon at the time, a lot of teams did strengths. And I remember getting my strengths and going, yeah, sounds like me, and not really thinking a huge amount about it, and probably putting them in the drawer. And it actually wasn't until I moved to Australia with Verizon and Brian was facilitating the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People course. And that got you thinking about what your mission and purpose in life was. And, you know, what a really great day at work looked like. And I remember going, gee, one of my favorite days at work was when I was arranging a lunch event with colleagues to be able to kind of connect with each other. I love that whole connecting piece. And when I thought about that, what's my mission and purpose? You know, how would I like to have been remembered on my 80th birthday for somebody to go, oh, Charlotte's fun and sells IT filled me with dread. And it got me thinking, God, I really want to shift my career. Like I didn't mind my job, but I didn't love my job, especially, probably, running up to moving to Australia. I didn't love it. And I really sort of felt a bit restless, and the kids were young, and it was a real juggle trying to kind of sell and meet the number and juggle the kids. There's got to be more to life than this. And I remember talking to Brian and going, if I wanted to shift my career, what would be the process? And he suggested I went and got some qualifications in coaching and facilitation and, hey, dig out your strengths again. So I sort of started down the path of exploring a different career. I would have loved to have been able to stay where I was and do that. And then, yes, I sort of encountered the not so nice boss, the very micromanaging, aggressive, bully boss. And really for me, that was the catalyst of, all right, well, I tried to navigate this one, didn't work. Now's time to jump. I'd probably rather have not jumped after 10 years, 12 years of being there. I would have loved to have stayed there and pursued that career change there. But actually, I'm glad that I did, because things have panned out differently, possibly more successfully.
Well, exactly. So, one door closes, another one opens, right? Was for the move from the UK to Australia part of that, trying to find a new kind of career path, or was it just, it felt like a good thing to do?
I don't think it. I think it was a restlessness, but I don't think it's, I want to change my career, let's go to Australia to do that. I think we came out to see some friends on holiday, and at the time I had a conversation with the then MD of Verizon in Australia and said, hey, if I wanted to transfer, what would be the process? And it was really, you do the same job, it's just a different, view out the window, next job's yours type of thing. So I kind of did the transition, and I think it was, a number of events that kind of led up to, all right, well, maybe now is the time to, transition. It was I like the whole new broom sweeps clean. It was something fresh. It was a new team. It was a new opportunity, new clients, new culture, new environment. But then still, I think I felt that little bit unfulfilled. And was I really fully playing to my strengths? And was I doing something that was meaningful to me? Was I leading a purposeful life? And if I think about it, selling IT for me, not really. I enjoyed it while I was doing it. It helped me earn decent money, helped me get in the position where I am now. But did I love it? Would I give it a 10 out of 10 every day at work, school? Probably not.
Yeah, when you have to update your CRM and get your forecast ready and fill out a spreadsheet, that's not the most fulfilling part of that role, is it?
No, and it felt an awful lot of that,
Yeah.
those times when you go, oh, I really love creating a solution for a client and, collaborating with colleagues. It felt less of that, more of the pointless things. What felt like pointless to me were the unfulfilling pieces, yes.
Yes, one of my colleagues recently said to me, are we asking the right question? Because we were talking exactly about this part around the reporting and the view, if you like, the shop window of the sales team and how it looks. And I was getting quite like, well, the shop window needs to be nice and neat and tidy because that's really important. And she said, but are you asking the right question? And it made me pause and say, actually, you're right. The shop window is important, but actually more important is how are they developing their customer relationships, how are they developing their funnel, what's the next steps and all of those things. So we often get hung up on those little minutiae when actually the big picture is so much more important, right? And so that was quite for me as well, I was like really going down this train of thought that the shop windows just does not look right, and yet there you go, you've just confirmed it's not the most exciting thing to do, right? So why would people do it?
I think there needs to be a balance. I always think about when we got the opportunity to play to our strengths. Do we all have the opportunity to do that 100% of the time? No, we don't. But could it be 70, 80% of the time? But when you find yourself doing more of that admin-y stuff 70% of the time, then, and you only get to do the bits that you really love 30% of the time, then that's where things kind of feel out of kilter and people are not feeling quite so fulfilled in what they're doing.
Yeah. So you did, you mentioned two things that you did that really kind of like made you start thinking. There was the Strengths Finders assessment, and then there was the 7 Habits course that you did. How did the two link together in your mind?
They didn't at first. As I say, when I first discovered my strengths, I was like, yes, this sounds like me. Put it in the drawer, didn't do much with it. They only linked when I realized about this sort of epiphany of, oh my gosh, on my 80th birthday, is this how I want people to talk about me? And is this how I'm going to define success for my life of, being a good IT salesperson and hitting a number? It was Brian that then helped me make the connections of, have you looked back at your strengths? And I remember it was that point as well, where initially I only had the top 5 strengths, talent themes. It was at that point where I did the Stephen Covey course that I got to discover my full 34 report, which, opened up so much more. I always go top 5 is probably 20% of who you are. Your top 10 is probably about 80% of who you are. And that sort of brought more things and connected more dots for me of, oh, yes, I'm high significance. I want to make an impact. I'm high communication. I love talking to people. It's not that I've just got verbal diarrhea. I love taking something that's good and making it even better with my maximizer. So I think discovering what was just outside the top 10 was that connecting piece that maybe I was missing. And then thinking about how might I shift my career utilizing some of these talent themes. How, if I explored lots of things. I explored becoming a sales manager, becoming a specialist in different kind of areas. And it was like, I was thinking of those Osborne kids books. That's not my puffy. Its coat's too fluffy. It's like, no, that's not my career. It's too numbers. No, that's not my career. It's too this. And then the more I got talking to Brian, it was like, I think I want to do what you do. I think I want to facilitate training programs and, coach people. And the more I went off and found out, and through at the time Verizon had the tuition assistance allowance, So I had that funds to be able to spend on development that would still be useful at work. But the more I found out about coaching, the more I wanted to know. The more I found out about strengths, the more I wanted to know, and hence went on to become Gallup accredited. And then the more I got to facilitate training workshops and, I guess making possible the wisdom that is in the room of lots of other people, then I went, yes, this is my puppy. This is my career. This is just right. And now I couldn't imagine doing anything different other than recruitment. Sometimes I think I might like to be a recruiter, but one day, maybe for 6 months.
All right. Why recruitment?
I cannot help myself with my kind of the winning others over, the love, social interactions, meeting new people, and my arranger. I'm often seeing connections. Sam, you're looking for a new job in this area. I know somebody. Like, my brain is just constantly. So I naturally make these connections because I like talking to people. I go, one day I'd like to try recruitment. I don't think it's a permanent job for me, but I'd love to dip my toe in one day and have a dabble.
Okay, yeah, more from a kind of like facilitating, putting people together in the right kind of fits, round peg in a round hole type of thing. Is that?
Yes, I think so. And or helping people find careers that are truly fulfilling. I feel like I sort of do that anyway. No, I don't get paid for it, but I get paid for doing other stuff already. So I feel like I do it anyway. But it is that thing of, well, maybe one day I might try it and go, well, I feel like it's a bucket list type thing. It's like, maybe for 6 months at least I know. I often wondered what I would be like as a recruiter. Let's go try it and see. But hey, a few people have said, like James, he worked at Verizon as well in recruiting, and he goes, you'd be an excellent recruiter. You should do it. But that means I'd have to, pass my business over to somebody else for a little while.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, or you could make it part of your business as well. I suppose that could be parts of it.
Correct.
In your book, you talk about your dyslexia and how that affected you through school. What was the impact to you from a kind of almost like a self-worth perspective? And what would you say to parents or people who are dyslexic who maybe have had a challenge with it and maybe have some limiting beliefs around it?
I think initially when I was at school, there would be things that would sort of sting and hurt a little bit. When your teachers or your school report said you wouldn't amount to much, that would sting. But I wouldn't say it limited my beliefs too much. I mean, I write in the book about having a limiting belief, and when somebody says, well, you should write a book, it's like, I can't write a book, I'm dyslexic. But actually, understanding the process and knowing that you've got an editor to go and, check all your spelling, then that's a good thing. My dyslexia shows up mainly as spelling. It was funny. I was clearing through the hall cupboards at the weekend, and I came across a folder that had all my exam results in it. Right. And I remember digging them out and looking at them and going, oh, yes, I got a C for English and a D and an E for, maths and physics, and I've got a few GCSEs to scrape together. And I go, actually, that didn't hold me back at all. So, and having a son who's just completed his, last year completed his final year of education at school and chose not to go to university, I know it's not going to hold him back. He just might take a different path than the conventional path of you leave, you go to university, you go on and you move that way. So I don't think it held me back. So I would say to anybody else with that disability, which is labelled as a disability, it's actually a unique, fantastic strength and ability because you see things in very different ways. So I would encourage anybody to, I guess, check out the book that I recommend of, Made by Dyslexia, and This is Dyslexia as a site to see all the superpowers that it brings. But I think it did have a few limiting beliefs when I was younger, but I think I went, well, this is my lot and I have to make the most of it. No, I'm not going to go on to sixth form or university and don't really want to anyway. I wanted to get out into the big wide world and work with horses initially. And I guess I sort of, work my way up through various different organisations. But I look back now and go, actually, I don't think it held me back. Had I gone to university, would it have made a difference in my life? I actually don't think it would have done.
For someone who's not experienced with dyslexia or that sort of other neurodiversity, what superpowers did you find it gave you that maybe others didn't have because they didn't have that?
Yeah, I think, maybe some people have these powers anyway, but for me in particular, it meant because I couldn't spell something, I had to be more creative in how I describe something or the words that I did use or how I might represent something visually. Like on LinkedIn this week, I've been doing something about, I love the concept of picture cards because I feel like, pictures can paint that 1,000 words or can say so much more than words can. So I think for me, it was perhaps creativity in how I would portray something, say something, present something. I think also, the superpowers of courage and being able to kind of speak up and push back and present. They're things that some people might have anyway, but I think those with any disability, whether it, like you say, the neurodiverse disabilities, just have to find different ways to do things. As I say, my youngest son, he's got autistic ADHD and dyslexia, but he's actually quite proud of them. He doesn't see them as disabilities. He sees them as, just different abilities. And that's what I would encourage anybody to kind of try and explore. Well, okay, you don't do that in a conventional way to everybody else, but what do you do that's different and unique? Which is why discovering your strengths is also powerful, because it gives you a language to be able to portray some of those things. Often it uncovers some of those, patterns of thought, feeling, behavior that you uniquely do that somebody else doesn't.
Okay, yeah. So let's talk about Strengths Finders itself. It was developed by Clifton, I believe, right, and is now part of the Gallup organization. What's the first step in someone who you said, right, find your strengths? So, here I am. I don't really know what my strengths are. I think I know what they are. What's the first step for me to find my strengths? And then what do I do once I've done that?
Well, the easiest way to find your strengths is go on and take the CliftonStrengths assessment. It used to be known as, Strengths Finder, or you might be able to sort of get the book in the old days, Strengths Finder 2.0. But anybody can go online now and Google Gallup CliftonStrengths and take the assessment. You can either discover just your top 5. I think it's, certainly for me, it's about 30 Australian dollars. So that's probably about the 20 British pounds to discover your top 5, or you can go on and take the full assessment where everybody takes the same assessment, but you can get a full report as well that uncovers your full 34, gives you more detail about that top 5, 6 through to 10, highlights your blind spots. So taking the assessment, number 1. What to do with it, obviously read the assessment, really reflect and think, how have these helped me in the past? How have they maybe hindered me and tripped me up a little bit? And I'm naturally always going to suggest somebody has a coach to help you unpack those results, and then think about not just naming them of what do they mean for me, but actually aiming them, applying them. How might they help me in my role? How might they help me find a new role? How can I be happier in my life? How can they help me be a better parent? There's books out there. Strengths-based parenting is a really cool one. If somebody's high strategic, how can this help me be a better parent? So, yeah. Take the assessment, read the results, reflect and think, how do they help me? How do they hinder me? Apply them more. And if you want to take the next step, recommended step is unpack them with a coach. Think about how you can apply them.
Okay. And with regards to the strengths, are they set in stone? Like, you do an assessment, say 5 years ago, and if you did the assessment today, would it still highlight the same strengths, or would they change as you've changed through those 5 years?
Yep, good question, and probably the most common question that I have in workshops. If I was to take this assessment again, would they change? So there are now 200 questions that you get asked. The chances of you, say you took the assessment yesterday, the chance of you answering all 200 questions in exactly the same way today is slim. Really, all that happens is they move around a bit in order. So like, my number 1 is activator, but I have significance and number 10. I have taken it before, and significance used to be number 6. So they really just move around in order. It's very unlikely for what's right at the bottom to suddenly jump up to the top. So Gallup have a lot of data, There's over 33 million people that have taken the assessment. They test people regularly. They've got tests over 2 weeks, 2 years, 20 years. The retest validity is actually 0.7, so it's very high that you are likely to get very similar or same results. Yes, somebody could say, well, I have intentionally gone and tried to, maybe analytical might be number 10. Somebody goes, oh no, I've been really focusing and learning more about being more analytical, and it might move up a little bit. But fundamentally, these are things that you naturally do well. There's an element of nature nurture. It's a talent is how we naturally think, feel, and behave, and they're typically developed by the time that we're 14. So, I can cast my mind back to when I was at school and see how my talents and strengths played out at school. I can just read a school report and it says Charlotte talks too much. So, I can see how that played out even when I was young. Now it's just about fine-tuning them and managing them, really. But yeah, the short answer is they don't tend to change much, but they're not set in stone.
Okay. And as someone who is very actively involved in strengths coaching, how should someone avoid, I suppose, confirmational bias, right? Yeah, this is me. This is great. That's who I am. Or look at the ones that are lower down and say, damn, that's a weakness. I really need to focus on that and develop that weakness of mine.
Well, let's define a weakness. A weakness is just something that gets in the way of success. So for me, learner and input are my bottom two. Does that mean to say I can't learn? No, it doesn't. But as I didn't go to university, I'm not a lover of the process of learning. People are often surprised that I'm low input. So input is about loving what you've learnt, perhaps, and doing something with it, or a collector. Now, I do collect a lot of useful things in specifically around CliftonStrengths, but it's driven by my maximizer and my significance is higher. It's like, you want a resource to help you do a better workshop? Hey, I've found out something there, but it's all about taking something that's already good and making it better. So it's not that I can't do it because it's at the bottom, and it's not a weakness because it's not getting in the way of my success. Whereas actually my activator that's number one gets in my way and probably manifests itself a little bit more as a weakness because I have a tendency for rushing into things a little bit too fast. So actually I have to learn to kind of moderate that one and invest in it. So that kind of looks at we often say, don't worry too much about what's at the bottom. That's not what you naturally do. That's not what energizes and motivates you. And typically those of us that work with CliftonStrengths, we don't believe in being a well-rounded individual, even though a lot of managers say we want you to be well-rounded. We actually want you to be like stars and have sharp, pointy bits to you, as opposed to filing those sharp, pointy bits down and trying to make you be well-rounded. So a lot of people do look at their report. I was only doing a group workshop this morning, and somebody said, oh yeah, I need to focus on what's at the bottom. It's like, do you? Is that going to energize and motivate you? It's like, maybe not. You're better off partnering with somebody that does that well, or better off using some other talent themes that you have high and combining those to manage something that you're not very good at. Now, I got fixated on your weakness question and I forgot the first question, Sanjay. What was it?
Confirmational bias. This is me.
Well, there's two things there. As you take the assessment, there were 177 questions. They changed it to 200 questions, but some of those are more demographic questions for Gallup. When you are asked the question, it only gives you 20 seconds. So it's hard to not give an instinctive answer because it's asking you quickly. You can't go, oh, do I want to be seen more like that or more like that? Now, when you read your own report, I guess we want you to be able to go, yes, this sounds like me, because it's putting out the answers you gave it to the question of how you naturally think, feel, and behave. I always ask the question when I'm working with individuals or teams, what percentage of your report when you read it did you feel sounded like you? And the average is about 80%. Most people go, yeah, 80% of it sounded like me. Some people go, 100% sounded like me. How on earth can this assessment know me quite so well? Well, there's a very clever algorithm behind it. The bits that don't sound like you, either discard them or get somebody else to kind of confirm. I've had some people go, no, I don't think I'm a developer. And somebody else has read it and gone, oh my gosh, that is so you. Of course you're a developer. There's an Ethiopian saying of fish see water last, like they're so submerged in water they don't see it. So as humans, I've seen the world through my eyes for the last 52 years. So I cannot see but anything else. It's harder for me to see through somebody else's eyes. But so I think this confirmation bias is, we kind of want a confirmation of going, yeah, this sounds like me, this is me. But if there's a confirmation bias of, I want to be seen more of an achiever, but actually I'm not an achiever, there could be an element of that. And that's where feedback may come in. A manager might go, I can see that you're an achiever. How can we use this more in your role to meet your objectives, your OKRs, whatever that looks like? What does success look like to you? How can we meet your own measure of success as well as meeting the measures of success that the business puts on you? So, there might be that little bit of confirmation bias as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Thank you for that. You touched on the fact that learner is kind of one of your lower strengths, and having read your book, you have lots of resources in there. You've clearly done a lot of research. You've clearly learned a lot in the process. So it was great that you said that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't do it, right? You of course you can do it. It's just the way your mind focuses. So the process of writing the book, you say in your book that it took you 5 years or something like that to get down to actually writing the book. What was the trigger? What was it that kind of made you say, okay, now's the time, I'm going to write the book? And what was that process like?
Yeah, so I had it on my list of things to do for about 4 or 5 years. Often at the beginning of the year, I'll write out my goals of the things that I want to achieve for the year, and the book would be on there. And each year I would get to the end and review my goals and go, I don't write the book. And with my own coach, I sat down, what feels like 2-3 years ago now, and went, what do we want to talk about today? I go, I want to talk about this. I'm really frustrated that I just don't seem to be able to get it done. And I wasn't sure why, but actually when I explored it with her, I realized that I actually didn't know the process of writing a book. So one, there was a little bit of limiting belief of, it feels really daunting. I'm dyslexic. How am I going to write this book? So then when I explored, actually, I don't know the process. Well, who do I know that has written a book? How might I find out? And I reached out to a friend of mine, Donna McGeorge. She's written a number of books, 12 books, I think, and said, Donna, you've written lots of books. How do you go about doing it? Charlotte, let me introduce you to Kelly Irving. She's a book coach. That's her job. She will help you get the book from your head out onto paper and structured in a way and, published. So I joined the expert author community and had coaching from Kelly, and part of a kind of community of other aspiring authors. I guess you kind of write your book together. So that's kind of where it started. And then once I met Kelly and joined this group, I was like, can't wait to write this book. And actually, I did enjoy the process more than I thought I was going to. I would typically go away at the weekend. My husband flies gliders a couple of hours away from where we live. We've got a caravan. We'd take the caravan away for a weekend. Kids are older and they were self-sufficient at home. He would go out and fly and I would stay in the caravan writing all day and do my research and, go and find my references and then structure it. The editing process, you create what's called the first shitty draft. It's like, okay, it's not a great book. You edit it yourself and then you get feedback from potential writers and you get feedback from an editor and, there's processes. But once you know that there's a process, well, there are different paths that you can go down. It was a lot easier because I felt like I had all the support in the world that I needed to get a good book out.
Yeah. Okay. And the book, as we know, is called Career Unstuck. So it kind of tells what it says on the tin, right? It helps you find, I think in your book you say, right, finding a 10 out of 10 role for yourself. So what would be the key takeaways you would suggest someone takes from the book when they have it and they read it?
Yeah. Well, I think key takeaway starts with that 10 out of 10. I coached an awful lot of people, in particularly during COVID, when I would ask that question on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love your work? And if love is too strong a word, change it to like. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high. The number that I would hear back from people of a 3 or a 4, I found, really sad that we are at work for, over 80,000 hours of our life is spent for work. Surely you need to be able to enjoy a little bit more than you are now. So my main aim for the book is that somebody moves that number upwards. Now, if you're already a 10 out of 10 at work, you love your job, the book's not for you. But if you are somebody who goes, I think there's a little bit more to life, I don't love my work, I'm maybe a 7 but would like to be an 8, or I'm a 3 and I'd really love to be an 8. The book has practical steps you can take. It's not just one path. It's a number of different tools, steps, questions to ask yourself, suggestions of people to kind of like reach out to and get that cheer squad. It's structured in thinking about the impact of being stuck, your mindset that you might have either about your own beliefs or your money mindset. I can't change from this job because I need to earn the money to pay the mortgage. Is that a mindset that we've got? Then there's pieces about, whether you're going to dip the toe into something new, jump right in. Do I need to go and get mentors, training, have a cheer squad behind me? But it's all about taking a little step forward. As I mentioned earlier, I'm an activator. So it's all about, let's take action. You're not going to think your way into a new career. Or even it doesn't have to be a new career. It could be just job crafting in the job that you have right now. I don't love that bit, but I really love that bit. How can I do a little bit more of that bit? So, if it's not a new career, just job craft and have a conversation with your manager about how can you play to your strengths more? And of course, you need to discover what your strengths are in order to play to them. And then if purpose is not something that's important to you, purpose doesn't need to be some big grand statement. It could just be, I'm having an impact. I'm making a difference. I am filling out a spreadsheet that somebody is going to do something with. It could be as simple as that. But a lot of people do want freedom, freedom to make decisions, freedom of where they work, how they work. But, there's more people than we think that actually want to do work that makes a difference. And somebody does something with whatever they do or produce.
No, absolutely. And that's a good segue to the question that my previous guest asked. So I always ask a previous guest to ask a question for my next guest, and I've written it down, so I'll read it out to you. So he asked, what's your most important value and what are you doing to support it, and how might you be working against it?
My most important value is like asking me to choose my favorite child. I have two and I'm torn as to which one. One is courage and the other one is humor. And I think I'm probably a little bit more drawn to humor right now. So I can't do a job or work or something that's not going to have a bit of fun and humor to it. What am I doing to support it? Well, I actively seek it out. I love working with customers who have a similar value, that want to have some fun in a workshop. I seek out friends where there's some fun involved. So I think I actively seek it out. How might it work against me? Well, sometimes I might be a little bit too flippant, or I might, bring humor in an inappropriate time, for instance. So yes, sometimes I might take it, too far. Is where sometimes you've worked with me, so sometimes it could work against me. But yeah, that's probably my most important one. If I thought about the other one, courage, again, it's part of me. I can't but help do it. How might it work against me? Sometimes I push back and other people are intimidated by that pushback. So that can work against me sometimes. So.
Right. Okay. That's cool. And as you know, this podcast is called Success Matters. So what does success look like for you?
I thought about this one knowing the name of the title, and probably like you and other guests, I looked up what the word success meant, in the dictionary, and it said that state or a condition of meeting a defined range of expectations. And I think that range of expectations is going to be, life, career, goals, fitness. It's going to be lots of things. But if I think about it in particular around career, for me, it means meeting those expectations. So if I had an expectation that I was going to, or a goal that I was going to write a book, I want to make sure that it's done. Now, sometimes it takes me longer than I want it to, but I'm going to do my best to meet it. So I like setting short goals typically. Like I'll often look at my year goal. I don't look much beyond a year, but otherwise I'm looking at 90-day goals. So success means for me, have I met my 90-day goals? And that was probably, ingrained in me in Verizon of the 90-day plan that we would have to do. But it also got me thinking about what the opposite of success was.
Okay.
And, fundamentally it's failure. I was also looking at other words, and I love the word bungle. I was like, oh, I like that word for the opposite of success is a bungle. And my life has been many bungles and failures. You could say I failed a lot of exams at school. I look back and also found the 3 driving tests that I failed. There's lots of things that I've failed at, but actually I've learned from them. And therefore they have ultimately led to success in some shape or form. I've made many a bungle in a meeting, in a workshop, in a situation. There's a few embarrassing stories in the book, and hey, you learn from them. So I think success to me means learning and growing and, meeting whatever defined expectation you set for yourself. Yes, sometimes we have to meet expectations the company sets for us. But for me now, running my own business, it tends to be the expectations I set for myself and or the outcomes that the customer's looking for. Have I met the outcomes that they're looking for? So I think that's what success means to me.
Yeah, I think the important thing is, what it means to you, right? The goals you've set for yourself, because oftentimes part of the reason that we're setting this whole podcast series up is that success is often measured by external things, or we think, right, those external things are the success metrics, but actually it's what's important to you. That's the measure of success, really, and meeting those goals. So thank you for that, Charlotte. Do you have a question for my next guest?
I do, and it's a play on this word bungle. I don't know whether I was drawn to the word bungle because of the children's program Rainbow, or whether it struck me.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, okay, yeah, bungle. Where have I heard that in my youth? So that's exactly it, right?
Yeah, it was the character.
Showing my age and your age as well, actually.
Yes. But, bungle being that kind of mishap, mistake, failure. So my question is, if you had to credit one bungle for actually your greatest success today, what would it be?
Okay. If you had to credit one bungle for your greatest success today, what would it be? And I'm going to ask you that back. So which one would you say?
I actually think it was not doing quite so well in my exams at school. Like I actually think it made me more tenacious. It made me find a different path. I actually go. Yeah, it was. I didn't do great. I wasn't that proud of the results, but it didn't define me. The other one would be in the book when I walked into a workshop with Marmite all up my face. But that's just a humorous story that I can tell everybody now. But would that be my greatest success? No. But no, I think the one of not doing great at school hasn't defined who I am, hasn't limited my own version of success for myself. And it's, exams and qualifications are not the be all and end all. Hopefully that inspires anybody that, didn't do so well at school themselves and are terrified. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Not the end of the world.
Yeah. Particularly as we've just had, certainly in the UK, we've just had the exam results, and your school term is starting now, or the university term. So yes, hopefully the story does inspire others that, it's not the end of the world that if you haven't done so well in your exams as you'd hoped, or if you have dyslexia, or
correct,
something else.
Yeah, but I don't want any child or parent to listen to this and think that it's an excuse not to work hard at school. That's not what Charlotte's saying. But if
this is the conversation you have with your own children, maybe.
That's right. If you work hard and you still don't get the results that you were hoping for, it's not going to define you.
Right. Yes. Got it. Understood. Great. Well, we're at the top of our time now, Charlotte. So thank you very much for the conversation. If people want to find out more, if they want to get in touch, if they'd like to engage you for your coaching, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Best place to find me, and I am an open connector on LinkedIn, would be LinkedIn. So Charlotte Blair on LinkedIn. I do have a number of websites, but instead of people trying to remember what they are, best place to find me is on LinkedIn. Connect with me there, send me a message. I'd love to have a conversation. If you did want to visit a website, then the best one to go to would be thestrengthspartners.com.
Strengthspartners.com. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for your time, Charlotte. It's been a great conversation. Great to catch up again after so many years. And yes, thank you once more.
Thank you for asking me. See you soon.
To find your success, contact me at info@successmatterscoaching.com. That's info@successmatterscoaching.com.